Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to each of you who are joining us for our second webinar in Series 2 of the Decolonization Learning Journey. My name is Nicole Cammert, and I'm very fortunate to live in Untitled, Cape Breton Island. I'm the Director of Operations and Special Projects for the Community Sector Council of Nova Scotia, and this Decolonization Learning Journey is indeed, in the truest sense of the word, a very special project. I'm honored to work with our partners at Untitled College and with my co-hosts, Elder Jane Meter and Mary Beth Doucette. As you can tell, all of us are wearing orange today. As you may know, today is Orange Shirt Day, a movement to create awareness of the intergenerational impacts of Indian residential schools and to promote the concept of every child matters. And today we're honored to have Elder Margaret Poulette and her daughter Rosie Sylliboy to join us and share with us their stories of residential school. So a warm welcome to you both. This is an opportunity for us all to remember and to honor Indigenous residential school survivors in the spirit of reconciliation. And we thank you, Margaret, for your courage, your leadership, and your generosity, to share your story. We know it's not easy, and we're here to listen deeply and be in support and solidarity with you, your family, and your community.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I'd like to just go over a couple of housekeeping notes. And Elke's going to pop the slide up. There we go. So as you join today, you likely already know you're in listen-only mode. We do this to minimize some of the background noise so we can keep our attention on our guests. We have over 600 people registered for this call today. Also, when you joined, you selected to either join by phone call or by computer audio. If you joined us by phone call, we recommend that you switch over to computer audio if possible. This is your best audio option today, as we'll be playing one, possibly two videos, and the audio will be coming through your computer speakers. If you do not have computer speakers available, you may want to use the telephone option, but you won't unfortunately be able to hear the videos, but you'll be able to see them. As always, you're able to submit your questions, and that includes any tech questions that you might have over in the control panel under the questions section. You can send things in there, and we'll be watching for your questions. Just know that today we'll be curating your questions, and we'll try to get to them towards the end of the presentation. However, we may not get to all of them, and possibly not any. As we really want to stay present to our guests today, as this is really their time to share. Lastly, we are recording today's presentation. You'll receive a copy of that recording tomorrow. It will include the presentation, but due to YouTube's copyright laws, it won't actually include the YouTube videos that we share today. So in the email that I send out with the recording, I'll be sure to send along those two links so you can watch those as well. So I'd also like to say a few words about today's session and extend a warm invitation to you. So there may be some content in today's talk that deals with some difficult truths of the past, and we encourage you to participate with a loved one or as a support person, as these stories may be traumatizing to some listeners. This is Margaret's story to tell, and it's not an easy one. And so we really invite you to imagine that you're in a room with Margaret and with Rosie, listening to their story. One of the greatest gifts that we can give someone, of course, is the gift of our presence and for them to be truly heard. So I really would like to everyone on the call, if possible, to just see if you can minimize whatever distractions might be around you today. You might like to shut your office door or your closet door or your bedroom door, wherever you are in these COVID times, if you can minimize distractions. And that might look like turning off your apps or other programs on your computer. You may like to turn off your phone and just get really comfortable and settle in as if you were in a room with Jane, with Margaret, with Rosie, and with Mary Beth. So I invite you to just take a couple of breaths and just settle into where you are, and perhaps you're standing, just to feel your feet on the earth, and just breathe. And just settling in, knowing that this is a time that we can really honor these stories that we're going to hear today. And as we settle in even more, we want to start to feel a shift away from our thinking and our doing mind and more in towards feeling and being, opening our hearts and opening our minds so we can truly give the presence, the gift of our presence, to our guests and friends today, Elder Margaret Poulette, Rosie Sylliboy, as well as our hosts, Elder Jane Meter and Mary Beth. So I'm going to call on Mary Beth and to Jane to open with a land acknowledgement and an opening prayer.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. So to kick off, I'm happy to virtually welcome you all through the magic of the internet to Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Mawita'mk and people first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Mawita'mk title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. And with that in mind, I'll hand it over to Jane Meter to welcome us in a good way. If you unmute yourself, Jane, then that would be awesome.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, Gwe, Bojo Ani, Chansi, and Segos Kanangoa. I'm very proud, very glad to be part of today's sessions, and I really am very grateful to Margaret. I've known her for a while, and she's a woman that is very close to my heart. I have a lot of admiration for her, a lot of love and a lot of respect. So I really thank her for coming here today. So I'm going to begin with a prayer. Gisuk Giniskamijina, Kukumijina, Aksahawegi. Muwalulek, Uchidolanawek, Afedamulek, at Koiwin Gisko. Siawi Abohan Muyek, Kes Weskum Kutchi, Aganama Hachi, Ftigi, Skijino. Iginamuyegan Sidohan. Exalsudi amulgiganodi. Clamandante siye, kisiawatisnen, akislugwatisnen, alnuim temodahan. Ahabohon muyek, wejidunen, wantahodi, ula osithamu, amsidnogama. Creator, grandfathers, grandmothers, and ancestors, we are grateful to you for this day, and we ask that you stay with us and be with us today. We humbly ask for your assistance as we address and teach other people. Grant wisdom, love, and strength to all of us so that we can continue to do our work together in a careful and proper manner in promoting Indigenous matters or concerns, especially in advancing and fostering peace on our mother, the earth. All my relations. Nadliach.
Hello, and Jen. Okay, so as Nicole highlighted, today is going to be a little bit different than normal. We are practicing listening and welcoming elders to do some storytelling. And when we were talking about how we want the feel to be today, it's more of a imagining you're sitting down and have the opportunity to sit with elders over a cup of tea and hear their storytelling. So the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was an effort to go across the country and record the testimony of residential school survivors and to record those stories that hadn't been recorded and in the past. So we invite you to listen appreciatively, and that's all I have at this point. Jane, is there anything else you'd like to add before I introduce our guests?
Not really, other than I would like people to not only remember the residential school survivors. When we talk too about survivors, it's very important to recognize their strength, their resilience, and the beautiful spirit they carry. They went through a lot, but they're still so powerful and so loving and so kind. Not only to remember them, but also remember and acknowledge some of our children never came home. Some of our children died in residential school, whether it was an accident or deliberate death or disease. We cannot forget those children. So today, offer prayers for those children too, along with those that survived. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, so our guests today, Margaret Poulette is an elder and a residential school survivor from the Mi'kmaq community of Waigoma. In 2001, she helped create a not-for-profit Mi'kmaq organization called Mawita'mk. I'm not saying that correctly, I'm sure, but it means being together. It provides housing and meaningful work for Mi'kmaq people with disabilities through a community of volunteers, support staff, members, partners, family, and friends. Margaret also helps to found a women's drumming group, and she's an elder for the Nova Scotia Community College, NSCC. And in 2017, Margaret was awarded the Kevin Beaton Heart of the Community Awards. Joining Margaret is her daughter Rosie, and Rosie Sylliboy is from Waikagama First Nation. In 1986, she had the pleasure of visiting a L'Arche community in iron mines, and that day changed the rest of her life. The people living there were so welcoming and loving. She continued with visits and ended up working in the workshop. Eventually, she joined the L'Arche community and moved to a community in Tacoma, Washington. She continued on her journey, working for various homes in Nova Scotia. Rosie also wished that there was a place in her own Mi'kmaq community that would do the same and follow the philosophies as L'Arche did, and so where they celebrate the unique gifts of everyone. In 2007, her wish came true. Mawita'mk opened in Waikagama, where they value and support the gifts of people with disabilities. And in 2012, Rosie came back to her home community and started working at Mawita'mk as a support person. In 2015, she started the position as manager, and Margaret's work makes changes in bringing awareness for our people with disabilities. All right, over to you, ladies.
All right, thank you very much. I think we're going to start off by smudging. So we started off with a smudge, and my mother would like to say a prayer. And while she's saying a prayer, I'm going to light a candle. And this candle is going to be lit in memory of all the survivors that went to residential school, and like Jane has mentioned earlier, that never came back, and for ones that have passed on. All right. You also the one.
Kasuan kung ichko ko ichirari. Nariyach. Danding smooching.
Lalima. Does the guy just want to start off by giving you a hug? Right. So just wanted to mention, we're going to be using a curriculum guide that was developed by survivors in Wegoma. We just want to acknowledge the work that they did. So I'm here to help Mom. And so she has 5 areas that she would like to talk about. And so first would be history of residential schools, and then before residential school, and then after residential school, resilience, and then forgiveness. So when we talk about the history of residential schools, in the curriculum guide here, it talks about how before the European colonizers came, we had the Mi'kmaq Grand Council as our government of Mi'kmaqi. And then in the early 1600s, the missionaries came. And back then, people thought differently because they believed that Mi'kmaq were savages and who needed to be converted to Christianity. So that was the first contact with them. And they didn't really recognize or respect our Mi'kmaq culture. And of course, that was one of the first signs of assimilation. So in 1610, Grand Chief Member 2 was the first Mi'kmaq person baptized. And then we go on and talked about how that was the first, the beginning of Catholicism in the Mi'kmaq life. And then we talked about different things that happened in 1949. They had Cornwallis Proclamation with the scalping bounty because we were referred to as the Indian problem because Mi'kmaq people were considered to be a barrier to Europeans who wanted access to the land and the territory. And so purposes of settlement and for exploiting resources and making profit. So they tried to eliminate us. And then we go into the Treaty of 1752, which we hear a lot about today, and it's the Peace and Friendship Treaty. And so the Mi'kmaq and British would live in peace, hunting and fishing rights would be guaranteed, any disputes would be settled in the British courts. The British would provide certain food staples twice a year, and the Mi'kmaq would be loyal to the British. And then in 1755, we had the expulsion of the Acadians, and they were allies. So when they were gone, Mi'kmaq people were more vulnerable when they were gone. So they deported approximately 11,000, close to 12,000 Acadians from the maritime region. And then in 1763 was the Royal Proclamation, and then went on to 1876 where we had the Indian Act. So it talked about who was responsible for the Native people. And then in 1870s, the first residential schools opened out west. And then in 1929, they began construction of the residential school here in Nova Scotia. And so the department believed that the federal government knew better than the Mi'kmaq what type of education our children should receive. And then so in the 30s, the residential school opened under the administration of Father Mackey. And its original purpose was to train Mi'kmaq teenage males for manual work and agriculture. But this project did not work out as planned. So they changed policy again and made it mandatory for children to attend. And so it was they were looking for children between the ages of 15 years to 17, but the children were much younger. And so we just wanted to also mention that during that same time, there was the centralization period that was happening, where a lot of our Mi'kmaq communities were left empty and centralized to two communities, and that's one in Cape Breton is Eskasoni, and one in Indian Brook, Shubenacadie. So you can imagine when the residential school system happened, we had 1,000 children that went. So a lot of our communities was empty. And then the 60s scoop. And so there's other policies that were going on. I think you want to start off with your video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was a video that was done, and it's called Margaret's Doll. And then we'll watch that, and then Margaret will talk about her story. Walalio. Huh? So right now, I just wanted to show a picture of Mom's great-grandchildren. So that would have been the age that Mom went to residential school. She was 3 years old, going on 4. So now Mom is going to talk a little bit about before residential school. What was your days like before residential school? Right. School didn't know.
I was born in Waikaman, in my parents' house in 1943. And we had a farm, small farm. We had horse, cows, pigs, chickens. And we had a small garden in the summertime, vegetable garden, and potato garden, that large one, turnips, carrots, everything. And we had an apple orchard. There were 6 apple trees on the side, and a bunch of them in the back. I don't know how many, but there were too many to count. And our barn was there. Our outhouse was way up. And my parents were very resourceful. Like, I never went to the grocery store. I don't remember going to grocery store back then anyway. I was too small to remember anyway. But I was told that what we had. I don't really remember too much. We didn't have any running water. Like the reserve. I don't think we had school. I don't remember.
We did them in school, Alex, and that.
Not really, but some of it, I must have slipped all the way. Because I remember I got sick on the plane, on the train. And it must have been a long, lonely trip. Because now when I see a straight road or straight anything that you go on, it looks so lonely. That's every day I go to dialysis. And there's a windy road. And you come to a straightforward road. And that used to be the train track. I was never on that track though. Just run the train track through straight. But it always looks so lonely going straight.
So do you want to talk about what your day was like at residential school?
I don't remember. I'm going to talk about when we got there.
Okay.
Yeah. When we got there, I remember that. First thing I remember was that picture I saw of Father Mac. A big picture. And that picture haunted me all during the time I was there. Because every time I look at it, it seems as if I'm looking at you. Anywhere you go, they got to watch what you're doing. And we were given numbers. Mine was 54. My sister was 53 or 51. We went there. I probably went the same time as our cousins Alexandrine and Mildred. Yeah,
Did you speak Mi'kmaq before you went?
I guess so. Because my parents had asked me though, how am I going to get along with talking English? They probably said that. And I was told that I was talking gibberish though, thinking I was talking English. But come to think of it, it must have been strange getting there. Strange building, big building, lights, toilet, strange food. Everything was strange. Strange looking people. If a child even today said, saw a nun, they'd be terrified. All in black. And everybody was given chores there. They're never too small to get a chore. Mine was dusting the baseboard. I don't know how many. I said I must have went around the world once or twice with my dust rag, going dusting that baseboard, hallway, and down the stairs. Everybody had jobs there. Like during the day, we went to later on. We went to school. The younger ones. Our days started. Our days at there started at 5. Because when you hear the bells start ringing, then the kitchen crew go down. The older girls make breakfast and all that. Then the nuns come around 6 o'clock with the bell, clapping their hands, getting up on the cold floor, kneeling down. We have to kneel down right away, say our prayers. And I heard that there was hardly any heat. I read this book by Chris Benjamin. I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name, but I read that book. It gave me a lot of information. We did a lot of research. Showed what time everything was, our meals, our chores, and everything. I heard that late after the older crew didn't go to school, they had to go to the barn or the kitchen. To in the night when we go to bed, there were bells ringing. I don't know how many times a day. You jumped when you heard it anyway. You had to go somewhere. I had to be somewhere. And when we go to bed at night, there'd be kids. Kids would pee their beds. And you know who pees the bed in the morning. Or when you go to the bathroom at night, there'd be kids sitting on the bowl, covered in blankets, scared they might pee their bed, or they'd be punished. And there were some kids there. I just remember there this morning, some kids, you hear them during the night trying to rock themselves to bed, you know, going back and forth, hearing that sound like, the Lord trying to rock themselves to bed. They must have been small, because I was with the small kids. My sister Teresa was older kids. We never saw each other, hardly saw each other. I never saw my brother Ben, only on family, they used to call him. That's when we would meet. And I never knew my brother missed me, because I must have been angry at him, because the pictures before we went, we'll always be sitting so close. He'll be holding me or something like that. Seen pictures, huh? Him holding me. And but when we got there, he never even touched me. I must have been angry at him, because turned out I didn't like him. And when we came out, it was just like fire and water. Until I heard him one day at a meeting or talk how much he missed me. I never knew that. Yeah. Just like before, I get stronger every time I talk about this. At first, when I used to talk about it, I'd be crying by now. I couldn't hardly say anything. But now I can talk. And it's only my story, because Truth and Reconciliation taught us to tell our own story, our workshop, Truth and Reconciliation workshop. Tell our story, our only story, nobody else's. And we're not supposed to mention anybody else, like us. We have to have their permission. And I've seen a lot of hurt. I've seen a lot of abuse in the school. Boys. There was this certain boy, the nuns always picked on him. Always. They put a dress on him, put a ribbon on his head, around his head. And they made us line up once to feel his horns. They told us he was growing horns. You know, some kids have square heads and two bumps here. And he had two bumps, and we believed he was growing his horns. That poor kid. And another boy that couldn't speak, couldn't read. They put a wooden wedge in his mouth, this wide, had it in his mouth all day, drooling. And in afternoon or after class, they would take it out, tell him to read now. You can open your mouth. He couldn't read because he stuttered. And there was this other girl, dark girl. She was always picked on too. Seems to me that the darker kids were picked on most. I finally felt that dark people didn't have any feelings. Really don't. No. And I didn't have any feelings myself. That's the heart of stone, we do. Yeah, your heart turns into stone. Yeah.
I remember you shared a story about the wax.
What? Yeah. The wax I used to use for polishing floor. And once I wanted to get sick, I thinking that I wouldn't have to do any chores or go to school or something like that. I thought that people in the infirmary got better treatment. Because the sister there was nice sister. And I wanted to be there. So I took paste wax, put it in my mouth, and tried to swallowed. I think I gagged. I don't know. I didn't get sick though, but my tongue was. And there was another time a girl dared me to hang out the window. As I said, I didn't have any feelings, I didn't have any fear. I hung out the window. I was holding onto the ledge like that. And all of a sudden I heard my sister hollering from the bottom. Margaret, get back in there. I got back in. Good thing I didn't slip like. And the bottom was cement. Going up.
So, what did you guys do for recreation?
We didn't have toys. We drove houses on the mud. Our playground was mud. Now there's no grass. It's all straightened out, like flattened out. And we drew a house, a pretend house. We drew pretend houses. Just a pile they call it. Just a field, a lamb. We drew everything in it, like a house. And we drew a bedroom. We didn't know what a bedroom was then, but we drew it. A dining room. We heard about the dining rooms there. And
Wash tub.
Huh?
Wash tub.
oh, that washer, they had to replace the washer. And in the washer, there's a wooden tub, had holes in it. They put that on the girls' side when they replaced it. And we used to use that as a toy. We'd get in and roll down the hill, and you'd be all going all over. That was fun. Well,
Sleigh.
and the sleigh. The sister sometimes would want to play with us. Propaganda. I take pictures of us playing with them. So much fun there. And we had these double runners. And some kids made a pile on the bottom, pile of snow. And we go up on the hill, put the sister on, tell her to drive. And we all plan to jump out. And we get a certain point. Got to a certain point and everybody went blind. But the sister, she went crashing. We all laughed and I don't know. I'm sure we were punished because we couldn't get away with anything. We were punished.
Korea Public School in school. For the visitors, did you get visitors? Did your parents come to visit?
I don't remember them. I have a picture of my brother-in-law coming. Probably with my dad too.
Where was your mom?
She was in the hospital. She was in the hospital in Kentville Sanatorium. She was there, I don't know how many years. We didn't get out till she went home anyway. But when we got home, she got sick again. And my father didn't take us to residential school again. No, thank God.
So how old were you when you came back home?
9 or 8 or 9.
Not speaking any Mi'kmaq?
No. My parents spoke Mi'kmaq. Everybody in our community spoke Mi'kmaq, except us when we got home. My brother spoke some, and my sister, because they remembered. They never lost it. But I forgot mine, and I didn't understand. I spoke English to my parents. I didn't know them. I called them Mrs. Sylliboy, Mr. Sylliboy. Because I never came home once when I was there. They said I was there 4 years. I think I was there 5 years. Because they didn't count till the school year. I was there before I was 4. I don't turn 4 till March, but the school year doesn't start till September. That's how they count them.
So how was it like when you come back to your community?
We didn't have any school. I don't know what kids would say today, but my dad wanted us to go to school. And he fought for the school. And he had already fought for the church. Because during centralization, it was going to be torn down. It wasn't him and his, my brother-in-law and his father had gone to Indigenous to tell them. My dad heard that their church was going to be torn down. I'm off my residential school.
So, so how was it like? Everybody else spoke Mi'kmaq around you and you didn't understand it?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do?
I started to stop talking Mi'kmaq because I wanted to be part of my family. And
Well, didn't Ben?
oh, Ben told me, Bridget, why don't you speak Mi'kmaq? You're dark enough. You know, Ben, he would say that anyway. And
well, I heard you inherited his boots.
oh yeah, before when we came from Chubby, my dad bought us, or my mother bought us clothes for Ben, farm clothes, overalls, boots, jacket, everything, because we were on the farm. And when we got home, Ben got sick. A few months later, a couple of months later, he ended up in the hospital in Kentville. Tuberculosis. He must have gotten it from there, not from my mom. Because my mom was clean. Our house was clean. She was so scared of having TB again. And I ended up with Ben's clothes because I had to wear them. Farm, boots, overalls. I had to get his chores. I had to do his farm work, garden work, everything.
So when you relearned your language,
Oh,
what was that like?
At the table, like I said, I'm going to learn something. And I've been practicing all day saying, Eptek tai nutskinnigan. Eptek tai nutskinnigan. And I was saying that at supper time, I know my mother would make nutskinnigan. Panak. And we had that for supper. And it's always hot anyway. And I took it and I said, Eptek tai nutskinnigan. And they all burst out laughing. And I laughed along with them too. I didn't get mad at them like, seems to me from then on, I learned a word every day or something like that, try to learn, and my community was Mi'kmaq speaking. My friends were Mi'kmaq speaking.
Mm. So, okay, so after residential school, what did you do did you go back to school or?
Yeah, well, we had school there.
Mm.
I was in grade 2 when I left Shelby. And I was in grade 2 forever. Because when we got home, there was no school. I was in grade 2. And then my dad fought for the school and the school was built. When it started, they didn't tell me I was in grade 2 anyway. But I was in grade 2. And my friends didn't speak Mi'kmaq, didn't speak English. Just only 2 of them. That came from Shelby too. There were 4 of us.
Mm.
Yeah. Coming from Shelby. Actually, 6 of us. 2 sisters, 2 sisters, 2 sisters.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you went back for your GED and.
Oh yeah, I went back for my GED. When I went to Mabu, they put me in a general course, family life course. I didn't know the difference. Because I assumed I won't get anywhere. They must have been told I was stupid, because it was in my brain, that I was stupid. And I didn't know how to read and all that. I remember my dad would tell me, would you read this comic for me? Yeah, I look at the pictures, tell them what I think they look like or what they're saying. He thinks I'm reading them because he didn't know how to read.
The Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And my dad, I always thought he was, thinking, could you get one?
They didn't know too much.
Well, that he was illiterate
Mm.
because he couldn't read. But he could read. He wrote, my mother used to send him letters when she was in the hospital to him in Mi'kmaq. He was able to read them.
Oh, so you read in Mi'kmaq.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. He was way smarter than me.
I know you tell a story about when you came out of residential school and, watching TV.
Oh, yeah. I was rooting for the Cowboys. Going to the movies, I would root for the Cowboys, like to win. It hurts me now to think of that. And when our language is really, it's sacred to me.
Mm.
My kids all speak Mi'kmaq. My grandchildren are getting there. And my great grandchildren do a couple of words in Mi'kmaq.
Mm-hmm.
They understand it. And our language is so, it's our spirit. It's really our spirit. Because I'm going to go on to my higher education now.
Your resilience.
Yeah. When I went to, I got my GED, and when I got my GED, I started getting work. Worked at my van office as a receptionist and membership clerk, then finally a welfare clerk. And from welfare clerk, I got a chance to go to School of Social Work. That's when I learned more about residential school. I didn't really believe before they were harming us or abusing us or anything like that until Laura Bernard started workshops. That's when and I was really working then before then too. Yeah. I was so naive, thinking it was all right.
Well, when did you start your healing?
When I started my healing, it's when I started thinking about my language, how important it was. Yeah,
Andrea.
uh,
Alois Gupta.
our language. It was good in Bea. Was good in language, yeah.
Yeah.
When I came from the social work, I didn't fly through social work. I was on probation the last year, and I was scared I won't graduate. But I graduated, and then our graduation class, like one person got a prize, and I got a prize saying that I won a trip to Montreal, to McGill, to a learners conference. Wow, me, a social worker going to a learners conference. I thought I was smart. I went there by myself, got there, went in. I was told where to go anyway. And I went there, and I went to this meeting, conference, the learned conference. Then they started talking about their theses and doctorates, and holy God, everybody was talking about what they'd done and everything, what they're going to do. And I felt small. And all of a sudden I said to myself, nobody here knows how to speak Mi'kmaq, only me. That lifted me up so high. I don't know. It raised me, and it got back my spirit. And I was proud to be a Mi'kmaq. I was proud that I speak Mi'kmaq. And that they weren't any better than me. And then there was this other time, my cousin ended up in Boston. I got permission from her daughter to talk about it. She ended up in Boston in an old age home. And her daughter wanted to bring her back to Nova Scotia. She did all the paperwork and everything. I went up to get her, just a former residential school survivor too. We went up there together. We went in this building. There are a bunch of old people. He's a good, all with white hair, all sitting on chairs that are tied up so they wouldn't be able to run. And I've seen my cousin. I went over to her, I talked to her, just talking to these workers. And I went to ask her if that was her. She said, they said it was her. When I mentioned her name, her eyes brightened up, looking at me. And she started talking Mi'kmaq to me. And in time,
No.
Illinois, over there. And then she had a bunch of dolls around her. teddy bears, little dolls. Then he went in it. No, she started talking to them in Mi'kmaq, calling them names in Mi'kmaq, telling them that she was going to take them to the doctor because one of them had a sore foot. And that the doctor that saw him like before wasn't any good, like just going to take him to another doctor. And then that came to my mind, like that's her way of preserving her Mi'kmaq language, talking to her dolls. Yeah. Yeah. But we ended up taking her home anyway. And on our way home, she was a runner. She was a runner to take off on us. We lost her in the store once, so we found her. And on our way home, we ended up in Maine, and the sun was going down. And I couldn't stop her. She wanted to go out. And she went out, and I thought she was going to run. But she went out to look at the sunset. She was saying, oh, it's so beautiful. I started thinking, like, I don't know how many years she hadn't seen the sunset like that.
So, in your community here, what's Bodemo? You guys gather?
Oh yeah, we had our meeting. We had our meeting since last 15 years.
In 2003, when
Yeah,
Phil Lane.
yeah, we had our meetings. When we started having our meetings, we didn't get along with each other. Hardly anybody spoke. When they spoke angry. And they would cry. And I used to think people were trying to outdo people, outdo each other. I had it worse than you and all that. But no, their stories were true. No. And we had these healing meetings. Phil Lane twice in Bedek. We had this. The second one was
A welcome home ceremony.
a welcome home ceremony. The first one was finding who we are, up to go, yeah, why we are like that. And Phil Lane was super. Well, I don't know where he is now, but
Mawita'mk.
yeah.
How many therapists?
Yeah, therapist. We had a therapist like Andrea Curry. She did a superb job on us.
How many was before that?
Started us.
Was it?
So
you guys had a few therapists before?
Oh yeah. They didn't work out. But she's still one that sticks with us.
Who?
Stuck with us, Andrea. Yeah. And we used to have these meetings. And we used to always hire somebody to sing our honor song from Mawita'mk, from Mawita'mk. They would come and we paid them. And at our meetings, like I told Andrea, we should start our own group. And we started learning our honor song. And we thought we were doing good. We were progressing, getting good, learning more. And we didn't have to hire anybody. And the more people to our group, like biggest group we had about 18. Yeah.
So you learned all the chant.
Yeah.
And the songs, the Mi'kmaq songs.
Yeah. And we ended up in grandmother's gathering in Toronto. Our survivors group, our drum group survivors, we go Mawita'mk, we call ourselves. And we're all mostly survivors or descendants of survivors. And we did a lot of workshops, go singing everywhere.
Mm.
And we went to Toronto for Grandmother's David Lewis conference when he brought the African women from Africa,
The grandmothers.
grandmothers that look after their grandchildren and their children that died of AIDS.
Mm.
And we always talk about Shubenacadie and my doll and everything
Mhm.
when we go to our meetings.
Mm.
And after one of our meetings, like one of the ladies pointed to me and said, I want to talk to you, Margaret. We had our colonization too. We used to go to school, residential school. The nuns would teach us to sing Yankee Doodle. That was good. But she said, like, when you get to the part Yankee Doodle riding on a pony, they would sing Yankee Doodle riding on an N-word. I don't like that word.
Mm.
And the nuns would burst out laughing. I felt so sorry for her. I even apologized for the nuns for her.
Mm. So I know we're talking about resilience now, and I know for people that don't know, your brother became a Grand Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Your sister became the first community health representative for CHR in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then you graduated from social work and helped to find.
I ended up working at doing my field 2 at a children's training center. That's with the children, mentally handicapped, physically disabled. There was this little Indian kid there. I was with him in Libya.
Mhm.
I was there. I used to go back and forth, sometimes stay there overnight at a motel and then go. He used to alternate between classes and
Field work.
field work. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I used to work with the workers there. They're so nice, some of them, most of them. And there was this one, some people like, I call her fake, rouge, lipstick, everything. Has a, what you call, kerchief around her neck and rings on her fingers and everything. Always dressed nice. And calling everybody honey, dear, darling. One morning I came in late. She didn't see me. No, she came in late. She didn't see me sitting there before. And she comes in saying, asking, is that squaw you're in? Oh God. I knew I was turning red. I was just holding my breath. Didn't want to say anything. And she saw me. It was her turn to turn red. And then it didn't end there because I ended up telling her supervisor. I told my supervisor. And I guess she got reprimanded. And then I started thinking of those these Gundian kids there. How are they treated when I'm not around? What do they call them or say to them? That's when I said, I started thinking about Large. It all started with Large stuff. I used to go there, volunteer on the board. My sister was on the board. And
Is that where your relationship with Tom Gunn?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
he helped us a lot. We still really involved with Tom.
So I just want to say that for people that don't know, Margaret and Grand Chief and Tom and Teresa had started discussions on opening a home, a group home in our own community after what Mom said about seeing how Aboriginal children were treated. She was scared, you know, how they were treated, and she wanted to make sure that there was a facility in our own community. So that's when, you know, your relationship to Tom and the L'Arche community, you guys got together with Tom, Uncle Ben, and Marie,
Yeah,
and Teresa, and said,
yeah, we clipped board people.
mhm,
Anybody but politicians, no.
mhm.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they lobbied our local chiefs and saying, you know, we really need a home here in our own community, in our own language, by our people. And so that's when they fought the government, because the government at that time, you know, with residential schools, when everything came to light, there was no funding for residential homes. And so if it wasn't for those individuals, Mawita'mk, I'm wearing our t-shirt today because Mawita'mk is the only group home on reserve in the communities. So, yeah.
I'll talk about before Mawita'mk was born. Might as well say that. Because we didn't have any building, like the chiefs had to agree. And every time there was an all chiefs meeting, my friend worked at the union office. She'd tell me where the meeting was. And Tom and I would appear
Mhm.
every meeting, like, and we try to talk to our chiefs. They got us in there, they let us talk. We had a lot of support from all the chiefs. So much support that they volunteered to give up houses for their reserves. 5 houses on Cape Breton Island, Chapel Island, Member 2, Wahamichkuk, Expulsion, Ahwegoma. And each one donated a house for our Mawita'mk to start. And when it was started, we didn't get any clients because of confidentiality.
Mhm.
I had to go up seeking people, finding out where they are, go visiting them.
Mhm. Yeah. So Mawita'mk is a not-for-profit society, which was, well, the fight started in 1986. Yeah, and I don't think because, like I said, they had to fight with the government there to get rights to build a home in the community. And then just when they were meeting with the lawyers, they didn't have any lawyers with them. And so Grand Chief Ben and Tom met with the government lawyers, and then just before that, was it the 11th hour or whatever?
They were told to leave the room.
Yeah, they were told to leave the room, and then they were asked to come back in.
No, they refused.
Oh, okay. And they were told that, fine, you can build a home, but there's no funding, there's no money. And that's where Mom talked about how they lobbied with the chiefs, and the chiefs gave up a house in each of their communities so that Mawita'mk could be built. And so now we've grown into a big organization. And if it wasn't for their resilience, and because they didn't want anybody else sent away from their community again. So yeah, we thank you for that, because I've seen the good work that's done, because whatever the work program is there, whatever the residential schools took away, we're trying to bring back in our work program. And that's reconnecting back to family, reconnecting to land, reconnecting to language. So everything, when you look at the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual part, we're trying to bring balance back.
And the elders are helping me too.
Yeah.
Helping me with my prayers and asking, making. Caroline Gould could be sitting there for hours and hours, just basket making and talking, and she taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I think because I'm next generation, my mother would call me when I was living in Halifax or whatever, and she would tell me, don't forget to go to church and speak your language. And there were many times when I resisted, but I thank you, Willalin, for your support and your push, because I'm very grateful that I have my language. Willalin.
Magoya.
So what about, I know there's a song that we want to end off with. So maybe you want to talk about Elik?
Oh, oh, okay. Alexander. Elik was one of our survivors. He was always at our meetings. Truth and Reconciliation workshop that was held in Tatmagus. The first section was for the clergy and all those involved with residential school, the residents there. The next group was us, survivors. Not too many of us showed up. I was surprised. And our third group was together. We were met together. That was supposed to be the reconciliation. And all the time my dog shows up. That dog. And we talked to one of the residents from there. And my dog would always pop up when I go anywhere new. And she told me, my neighbor used to be a janitor there. He used to bring home toys. The nuns used to give them dolls and trucks and wagons and sleds. We never got any toys there, but I understand now people would be fighting over toys.
For healing?
Yeah. And
We did.
I'm hurt lately about what's happening in Nova Scotia. Yeah, about our Indigenous people shunned, and it's all hurting. We tried to spread the word so many times with our talks. Seems like it's not going anywhere. People are putting on their blinders and our, oops, my earmuffs, my earrings. It's hurting. Maybe someday. But our government is doing good.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about healing and all that. So one of the things is I started my healing journey in 2000 with Della McGuire, because a lot of times when talk about residential schools, I said my mother didn't go, and then I find out later that she did go, and it was a shock, because I thought I knew my mother, and when I asked her, she said she did go, and I said, wow, how come you never talked about it? And then now when I hear the stories, I understand why. So there was a lot of times when we, when parenting issues or whatever, because, well, mom will say, you didn't get any parenting skills from residential school. So there was times when we would clash or whatever, but we did our healing, and we did a lot of forgiveness, and so when we sing the song, it's a healing song for us too, because we need, well, just listening to the words, it really talks a lot about what we have to do. And yeah, you talked about a heart of stone, because when you think about residential schools, a lot of kids that went in there, all of a sudden we're told, you can't feel like that and you can't say this. So a lot of them, when they left the residential school, they left as shells, not knowing how to handle feelings or just how to deal with that. So
I forgot to mention one of my heroes too, Rita Jo.
Yeah.
I used to visit her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked in Eskisconing, I used to visit her.
Mm-hmm.
And every time a new worker would go to work for our agency, I would make sure they'll meet Rita.
Nice. Yeah. All right, so we're going to end off with the forgiveness song. Are there another moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a drum that mom had gotten Loretta Gould to make. So I have the pleasure of using her drum.
Maker.
Oh, drums made by Todd Lavador. Okay. So here goes. Okay. They put me in a residential school when I was 6 years old. Forced me from my family and all I've ever known. I cried out for my mama, but she could not hear me. I was 200 miles away in Shubenacadie. They tried to break my spirit, I wouldn't let them see me cry. They held my head underwater until I almost died. I can still hear screaming deep inside of me, and I will always bear the scars of Shubenacadie. Well, I learned how to hate, and I learned how to fight, and love had no room in my heart of stone. I fix it to one that I'm alone. To find love I had to forgive. With forgiveness I found love. Way high, way high, way high, way. I found love. Way high, way high, way high, way. I found love. Now I found forgiveness. I can hold my head up high. Me, my hand, me, my die. The wisdom of the elders set my heart free from the sins of the residential school in Shubenacadie. Well, I learned how to hate, and I learned how to fight, and love had no room in my heart of stone. I fixed it to 100, I'm alone. To find love I had to forgive. With forgiveness I found love. Way high, way high, way high, way. I found love. Way high, way high, way high, way. I found love. Walali, Mom.
Walali.
And we just want to end off by saying,
Palit piano.
Madli Pianogap. This will never happen again. Walaliak.
Any questions? Yeah.
And Wilaliek for sharing with us. I think Jane is going to come back on with her webcam as well. We have about another half an hour of time to just follow up with some questions. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know some people had challenges getting to watch your video on YouTube, but we're going to share the link with them if they want to go and watch it later. So yeah, thank you. Jane, what are you thinking about?
Honestly, I loved listening to Margaret. I always love listening to Margaret. I know she has a big heart. I know she's got much kindness, you know. And this morning I listened to Becky Julian, and I feel that way about Becky too. Every time I'm around them, I can feel such emotion and so much love for them. And you know, when we talk about the resilience of residential school survivors, I think, as they said, that we talk about what happened there, and we can't hide that. It shouldn't be hidden. But the thing that we also need to see, as difficult as it was for our children and our people that went there, we cannot forget how resilient they've been, how strong they've been, and what beautiful people they are. And when I look at residential school and hear the stories and see what was taken from them, and yet they turned around and gave so much back to our communities. They are the ones. There are people like Noel Bouchette, Greg Johnson. Yeah, Greg and Joe B. Marshall. These are the men, and of course some of them. These were the men who Gordon MacDonald. You know, they brought. They're the ones that formed the political organizations. They're the ones that formed places like CMM, Union of Nova Scotia Indians, National Indian Brotherhood, which is now called AFN, the Assembly of First Nations. They brought those to us and made us stronger. Then we have people who are in our education system, who are teachers, who went to residential school, and who brought the stories and who brought back the language, and who made us proud of our language and want our language, and teaching, the importance of teaching our children the language. They are also the same ones that went out west in different areas to seek our spirituality, and they brought it back to us. We had pipes, but they were hidden. They brought them forward. The ceremonies, the sweat lodges that were ours, they brought those back to us. Then you have people like Rita Jo, who's a poet. You have people like Isabel Knockwood, who's a writer. You have people like Beagle Poulette, Alexander Poulette, the songwriters. You have people like Nora Bernard, who brought the largest suit against the Canadian government for residential school survivors. We have leaders like that. We have leaders like Margaret and her sister Teresa and her brother Ben. Like Teresa and Ben also were friends of mine. We have people like Becky Julian, who's been working for language and and has like brought back crafts. Every one of those residential school survivors, and then there's people like Joby Marshall and David Knockwood, who helped my father bring about one of the largest hockey tournaments, Indigenous hockey tournaments in the Maritimes, in the Atlantic region. Like both David and Joby Marshall were residential school survivors. So anytime and then we have people like Doreen Bernard who are fighting for the water, for the land, and their children. So almost any time that there's a huge movement and leadership, it's the residential school survivors. To me, they are our heroes. They are our leaders. And I think as Mi'kmaq people and as Indigenous people, we owe them so much. We owe a lot to them. And we definitely owe a debt of gratitude to them. And as Margaret was saying, the things that are going on in southwestern Nova Scotia and with the fishing, that is hurtful. That is hurtful. And sometimes when I think about that stuff, when do we earn our place in this society? When do we become worthy of respect? When do we become worthy of being treated human? When there's a shirt my daughter has, I'm just going back onto treaty rights, and she has a shirt by a company called Section 35, and says all these treaty rights, and we're still not treated right. But I really feel with the residential school survivors, I think we owe them so much, and we owe them love and gratitude for all they went through, and yet they came back to us strong in spite of what they went through. They still became the leaders. They weren't broken in there. Not that they didn't have a hard time, but they still became strong leaders for us and showed us how to love and how to forgive. And today, I think the other thing that I said is we need to think about the children that never came back. Those children that we that died there, and some we don't even know their names anymore. But I think that's all I have to say for today. And I love you, Margaret. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I have two
Thanks.
questions, if you don't mind me asking, from the audience people. So one question, Rosie, could you hold up the curriculum guide that you were referring to at the very beginning? And is that something that people can have access to, or is that through the school that they use that?
Yeah, this was developed by Andrea Curry and the survivors. Margaret had mentioned earlier a lot of when the survivors would meet. Andrea was the therapist that stuck around after so many that just had a hard time. And so this is the only survivor group that I know that still meets as a group. And so I don't know how would well, actually, I think if you emailed Margaret, get a hold of Margaret, she can get copies for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And another question was, we see the sign in your background that says Kesalul. Is that, I'm probably not saying it right, I love you? Is that so can you give us a language lesson and tell us how we're supposed to say that?
Well, that's a tricky one because it's that one word could be 3 different meanings. But because when you look at it, it's Gesalul. Gesalul means I love you. Or it could be Gesalul means I hurt you. Or Gesalul means
Kesalo.
throw you in the fire. So, but this Kesalo. Kesalo means I love you. And that was one of the things when we were growing up, with being kids, we would never go to bed without saying I love you, and then to to end our fight or whatever,
With a kiss.
yeah, with a hug and kiss. So we would never go to bed angry. So
Thank you. I've been in language lessons with Jane Meter before, and have learned that you have to be very, very, very careful about the context and what you're trying to say. So thank you for explaining that.
yeah.
Yeah, it depends where you put the apostrophe, and it's just a line, and like to hurt you, Gesalo, or Gesalo, I love you. And my niece told me one time, she said, so there is a fine line between love and hate. It's an apostrophe. But when Rosie was showing you the curriculum guide, if you go to Department of Education, there are also curriculum guides there from grade primary. I think there's 4 different ones, grade primary to 3, 4, 5, 6, middle school, and high school. And if you can somehow find it in the Department of Education in Nova Scotia, they have curriculum guides for those grades and things that are appropriate for little kids too.
Mhm. And one of the things that we ended off with, that the word there where we said "maadlipianugap," that's a very important message to leave with children, because of course with you're talking about what's going on in the other part of Nova Scotia there with that fight, and there was a Facebook message going around saying that somebody was going to petition to start up a residential school again. And that was something that is so off the wall, and just to leave a message, because you have children that are reading Facebook, and somebody reached out to their mother and was scared, and could this actually happen? And we're just going to say no, that's not going to happen, because Mog is going to make sure, Jane Meter's going to make sure, Mary Beth, and I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again. So matlipianugap. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm watching the chats that are happening in the background, and there's so many people that are just so grateful and appreciative for having you on and joining us today to share. There's one person said that they want you to know that their blinders are off and their earmuffs are off and their hearts are open. And so they're really, really happy to be able to participate in this chance to learn and to grow. And there's lots of thank yous that are coming in from there. Jane, I think that's a good place to end, unless you give everybody a last chance to say their goodbyes and end it there.
I think Nicole has a video that she
Oh.
would like us to see. And for those of you, it's a video. I don't know how many of you have seen it. It's a beautiful video, and it's called "Now He Can Fancy Dance." And you see it. It's about residential school. This woman by the name of Cindy Paul from British Columbia wrote this song and has shared it, and it's powerful. But it's also, when you look at the end, it's also hopeful. It goes through the despair, but it shows hope at the end. And I hope that you will watch that and think about what's in that video and the messages that are in there. I think Nicole has it ready to go.
Great, Jane. I'll share that now, and we'll all come back. It's about a 4-minute video. We'll all come back to close and say thank you to our guests.
Okay.
Scotia.
Udasi, wel siddemen.
Scotia.
The
How-
PowerPoint to close today. Jane, thank you so much for sharing that video.
There we go.
You can dance?
I find it very, very powerful. I've seen it about 100 times, still makes me cry. Still touches me. Abby Delois, it's Cindy Paul, British Columbia, layout.
Cindy Paul. Andy
Yeah.
Paul. No, you do.
Yeah, she's, but might be, but yeah, but I think Nicole can send you the link. Or you can find it on YouTube. It's called He Can Fancy Dance.
Yeah.
Mm.
Andy
Fancy.
Paul. You know, you took it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's from British
She's
Columbia.
talking about the elder she knows from British Columbia by name of Andy Paul. And I've heard his name before. Yeah.
I think he started the Native Indian Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Was one of the founders. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
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 So before I start to close, I just want to make sure Mary Beth and Jane and Margaret and Rosie, well, Jane, you always have the final word. But before I sort of do my bit, just open the floor again to all four of you.
I don't have anything. I don't think I have anything else that I want to add right now. I think I really appreciate when we have this chance to hear and listen to elders, even if it's virtually. I really appreciate being able to listen and to continue to be reminded that, you know, we have a lot of learning to do, and as Canadians, we have a lot that we really a deep thinking that we have to do, and so. Yeah, I deep appreciation for your time. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo that, Mary Beth. Thank you. This is such a rare treat that we have two elders in this virtual space with us. And I just really want to thank you both, Jane and Margaret and Rosie, for being here. And Mary Beth, you bring incredible wisdom to this conversation too. We're really fortunate, all of us on this call, to have the gift of your presence and your wisdom. I also want to just say, Rosie and Margaret, it's beautiful to see the two of you interact. There's so much love and respect between the two of you. And as a mother who has a daughter in her teenage years, I can understand some of the points of resistance that you were referring to, Rosie. And yeah, just really want to honor the relationship that the two of you have. So as we close out today, I just want to remind everybody that we do have a survey that goes out as soon as we close this session. The survey will be in your inbox, and we'd love to hear your feedback. We do keep it intentionally short to honor your time. Also, tomorrow is is Treaty Day in Nova Scotia, and it marks the first day of Mi'kmaq History Month. So we at the Community Sector Council of Nova Scotia, we've gathered all kinds of resources to help support your learning journey above and beyond what we're already doing and how you're already participating in this webinar series. So we invite you to delve into the many books, there's videos, there's different readings, and Mary Beth and Jane and Elise from Unama'ki College has helped curate this collection of resources. So you'll find them on the Decolonization Learning Journey page under resources. So we encourage you to do that to continue your learning, particularly during this month. And so next Tuesday, we continue with webinar 3. We'll have Elder Albert Marshall, and joining him is Nadine Lafort, who will be sharing the teachings of two-eyed seeing and ways that we can be thinking of applying this, this thinking and this philosophy and this dual world view to our worlds, to our organizations, and to our lives. So once again, a heartfelt thank you, and as always, final word to Jane.
Okay, before I even give any final word, I also wanted people to, there's a website, a wonderful website that has so many resources on residential schools, and it's called The Legacy of Hope. It's a website I think any of you can access. Teachers, there's a lot of resources in there. But I am deeply grateful to Nicole, to Mary Beth, to Elise, for these webinars and for allowing us as Mi'kmaq to share our thoughts, our ideas, our stories in our lives. But you know, as Margaret said, and as Rosie said, you know, let's make sure none of this happens again. You know, the onus and the responsibility is on us that this never happens again, never happens to any of our children, you know, whether they be Indigenous or non-Indigenous, that we take on the responsibility of treating our children with the utmost love and respect they deserve, and to remember that those children are gifts from Creator. That Creator loved us so much that He gave us these gifts of the children to enrich our lives. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you, Miigwech Daniela.
Walalia.
Welcome to Divas.
Thank you.
Namu Bye. Namu Tasnen.
Bye.
Miigwech Valadia.